You have exactly 3 seconds to get out of that seat before I drag you out myself. Officer Brannigan growled, his hand hovering over his taser. The entire first-class cabin went dead silent. 19-year-old Maya didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She simply looked at the officer, then at the woman smirking beside him, and whispered, "If you touch me, you won't just lose your badge. You're going to lose the very ground you're standing on." The cop laughed and clamped the handcuffs tight. 2 minutes later, a phone rang in the cockpit that would ground the plane, bankrupt a legacy, and prove that the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one yelling, it's the one texting her dad. This is the story of how a flight to Zurich became a war zone. The air inside the first-class cabin of Sovereign Airways Flight 902 to Zurich smelled of recycled lavender and old money. It was the kind of atmosphere where the silence was heavy, and the rustle of a newspaper sounded like a gunshot. Maya Sterling, 19 years old and dressed in a vintage oversized hoodie and torn jeans, adjusted her noise-canceling headphones. She pulled her legs up onto the oversized leather seat, 1A, arguably the best spot on the Boeing 777. She wasn't trying to be conspicuous. In fact, she was trying to disappear. It had been a long week of university tours in the States, and she just wanted to get back to her father's estate in Switzerland to sleep for 3 days straight. She tapped the screen of her phone, sending a quick text. Boarded. 1A. Safe. Love you, Dad. 3 dots danced on the screen, followed by a reply. Good. The merger is stressing me out. See you in 8 hours. Don't let the turbulence get to you. Maya smiled, locking her screen. She closed her eyes, letting the soft hum of the pre-flight engine lull her. Excuse me? The voice was sharp, nasal, and dripped with an entitlement that could cut glass. Maya didn't move initially, assuming the voice was directed at a flight attendant. Hello? I know you can hear me. Take those ridiculous things off. A manicured hand with a diamond the size of a grape tapped aggressively on Maya's shoulder. Maya flinched, sliding her headphones down. She looked up to see a woman looming over her. She was perhaps 50, wearing a Chanel tweed suit that cost more than most cars, with a face pulled tight by skepticism and surgery. This was Patricia Holloway. "Can I help you?" Maya asked, her voice calm, though her heart rate spiked. "You're in my seat," Patricia declared, not making eye contact, but rather looking at Maya's torn jeans with distinct disgust. "Economy boarding hasn't started yet. You must have snuck in during the pre-board. Very clever, but I need you to move. Now." Maya blinked. "I'm sorry, there must be a mistake. This is seat 1A. I have a ticket for 1A. Patricia let out a dry, humorless laugh, turning to the passengers behind her, a businessman in a gray suit and an elderly couple, seeking an audience. "She has a ticket. Did you hear that? Listen, sweetie, this is first class. Sovereign class, actually. They don't give these seats to students. Or whatever you are. Now, grab your little backpack and go to the back before I call someone." "I'm not moving," Maya said, her voice hardening slightly. "Check your boarding pass." "Maybe you're in 1B? Patricia's face flushed a deep, angry crimson. She didn't check her pass. Instead, she snapped her fingers at a passing flight attendant. "You! Yes, you. Come here immediately." Sarah, the head flight attendant, hurried over. She had been flying for 15 years, but the look on Patricia's face made her stomach turn. "Yes, Mrs. Holloway? Is there a problem?" "There is a massive problem," Patricia hissed, pointing a trembling finger at Maya. "There is a squatter in my seat. She's refusing to leave. I paid $12,000 for this pod, and I am not going to stand here while this child dirties the upholstery." Sarah looked at Maya, then at the manifest on her tablet. She bit her lip. "Ma'am," she addressed Maya gently, "may I see your boarding pass, please?" Maya didn't argue. She unlocked her phone and held up the QR code. It clearly read, Sterling/Maya. Seat 1A, status, invitation only. Sarah's eyes widened. Invitation only was a status level above platinum. It was reserved for board members, major investors, and VIPs that the airline couldn't afford to upset. "Everything looks in order, Mrs. Holloway," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. "Miss Sterling is in the correct seat. You are in seat 1K, on the other side of the aisle. It's the exact same seat configuration. Patricia looked as if she had been slapped. 1K? I specifically requested 1A. I always sit in 1A. The sun glare is different on the right side. She glared at Maya. And I don't believe for a second that ticket is real. Look at her. She's wearing rags. She probably hacked the app. Kids do that these days. Ma'am, the scanner verified it. Sarah tried to reason. I don't care what the scanner says. Patricia shouted, her voice now drawing the attention of the entire cabin. I am a Diamond Medallion member. My husband is a partner at Goldman. I demand you remove her. I am not sitting across the aisle from a delinquent who stole a ticket. Maya sighed, putting her headphones back on. I'm not moving, lady. Go sit down. That was the match in the powder keg. Patricia slammed her hand onto Maya's tray table, knocking Maya's phone to the floor. Don't you dare ignore me! You think because you stole a seat you have rights here? You have nothing. You are nothing. Sarah, the flight attendant, stepped in, panic rising. Mrs. Holloway, please! You're causing a disturbance. I need you to take your seat, or what? Patricia screamed. Or you'll kick me off. Me! I keep this airline in business. Get the pilot. Better yet, get the police. I want this little thief arrested for fraud and assault. Assault? Maya asked, picking up her phone. I haven't touched you. You assaulted me with your insolence, Patricia shrieked, logic completely abandoning her. She turned to the businessman in row 2. You saw it, didn't you? She threatened me. The businessman, not wanting to get involved, looked down at his iPad. Call the police, Patricia commanded Sarah. Now, or I will sue this airline into the ground. I want her off this plane. Sarah looked at Maya, pleading silently for her to just move to appease the woman, but Maya's face was stone. She knew her rights, she knew who she was, and she knew exactly what was about to happen. Fine, Sarah whispered, defeated. She walked to the interphone and dialed the cockpit. Captain, we have a situation in first. Passenger refuses to deplane. Another passenger claims assault. Yes, I think we need security. Maya looked out the window, watching the baggage handlers toss luggage onto the belt. She unlocked her phone and sent one more text. Dad, complication at JFK. Police incoming. Some lady named Holloway. Might be late. The response was instantaneous. Handle it with grace. If they cross the line, call me. I'm in a meeting with the board of directors, but I'll step out. Maya smirked. Grace. She could do grace. But if Patricia Holloway wanted a show, Maya was about to give her a blockbuster. 10 minutes later, the heavy footsteps of authority thudded down the jet bridge. The other passengers in first class were shifting uncomfortably. Some were filming with their phones, hiding the lenses behind magazines. 2 officers from the Port Authority Police Department entered the cabin. Leading them was Officer Derek Brannigan. He was a large man, physically imposing, with a buzz cut and a face that suggested he had little patience for nuance. Behind him was a younger, more hesitant officer named Miller. Patricia Holloway lit up like a Christmas tree when she saw them. She smoothed her skirt and adopted a look of victimhood that was almost impressive in its theatricality. "Officers! Thank God!" she gasped, clutching her pearls. "I've been terrified. This person, this intruder, she's been threatening me. She stole this seat, and when I asked her to move, she became violent." Officer Brannigan scanned the scene. He saw a middle-aged, wealthy white woman, looking distressed. Then he looked at seat 1A. He saw a young black girl in a hoodie, looking bored, scrolling through TikTok. The narrative wrote itself in Brannigan's head. He'd seen it before. Kids sneaking into seats for a selfie, then refusing to leave. He marched up to seat 1A. "All right, let's go. Party's over." Maya paused her video and looked up. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Brannigan barked. "Grab your bag. You're getting off the plane." Maya didn't move. "I have a ticket. I paid for this seat." "Well, my father did, but it's my seat." "I don't care who you say paid for it," Brannigan said, leaning in, invading her personal space. "The lady says you're harassing her. The crew says you're causing a disturbance. That gives me the right to remove you. Now, we can do this the easy way, where you walk off, or the hard way, where I drag you off in cuffs. your choice. Did you ask the flight attendant if I have a ticket? Maya asked calmly, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Or did you just take her word for it? She gestured to Patricia. I don't need to check your ticket, Brannigan sneered. This is a private aircraft. The airline wants you gone. You're trespassing. Sarah, the flight attendant, stepped forward timidly. Officer, actually, she does have a ticket. It's valid. The dispute is just that Mrs. Holloway wanted that specific seat. Brannigan paused, looking annoyed that his narrative was being challenged. He looked at Patricia. She hacked it, Patricia shouted, jumping in. Officer, look at her. Does she look like she belongs in a $12,000 seat? She's probably a drug mule. I saw her stash something in her bag when you walked in. I don't feel safe flying with her. The accusation of drugs changed the temperature in the room instantly. Brannigan's eyes narrowed. Is that true? You have something in the bag. I have a laptop and a bag of gummy bears, Maya said dryly, and a constitutional right against unreasonable search and seizure. Not on a plane, you don't, Brannigan lied. Stand up, hands on your head, I'm searching the bag. No, Maya said. The cabin gasped. No. Brannigan laughed, a cold, dangerous sound. Did you just say no to me? I said no. You have no probable cause other than the rantings of a woman who thinks she owns the plane. I haven't broken any laws. I am a paying customer. If you touch me or my property, you are violating my civil rights. And I promise you, Officer Brannigan, she read his name tag intentionally slowly, you cannot afford the lawsuit that is coming your way. Brannigan's face turned purple. He wasn't used to compliance. He was used to fear. And this girl wasn't afraid. That made him hate her. Listen here, you little brat, Brannigan growled. He reached out and grabbed Maya by the arm, yanking her hard. Maya winced as his grip dug into her bicep. Let go of me! You're under arrest, Brannigan shouted, pulling her out of the seat. Maya stumbled into the aisle. Resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and whatever else I find in that bag. Officer, wait! Officer Miller, the younger partner, tried to intervene. Maybe we should check her ID first, if she has a ticket. Shut up, Miller, Brannigan snapped. He spun Maya around and slammed her against the bulkhead wall. Stop resisting! I'm not resisting, Maya cried out, the pain in her shoulder sharp. Patricia Holloway was beaming. She pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of Maya being pinned against the wall. That's right! Take out the trash! Justice is served! Brannigan unhooked the handcuffs from his belt. The metallic click-click sound echoed through the silent cabin. You have exactly 3 seconds to apologize to Mrs. Holloway and walk off, Brannigan whispered in Maya's ear. Or I book you into the darkest cell at JFK. Maya pressed her cheek against the cool plastic of the plane wall. She took a deep breath. She realized that being graceful was no longer an option. I want my phone, Maya said quietly. You'll get your phone call at the station, Brannigan said, snapping the first cuff onto her left wrist. No, Maya said, her voice dropping an octave, sounding eerily like her father. My phone is in my pocket. You are going to let me take it out, and I am going to make one call. If you don't let me do that, officer, I swear to God, by tomorrow morning you will be guarding a mall parking lot in New Jersey. Brannigan hesitated. There was something in her voice. It wasn't the desperate plea of a criminal. It was the absolute certainty of a commander. Let her make the call, Officer Miller said, his voice anxious. Brannigan, seriously, something feels off. Brannigan scoffed but released the pressure on her back slightly. Fine, one call, make it quick, then you're going to jail. Maya reached into her pocket with her free hand, the other still dangling with the open handcuff. She pulled out her phone. Her hand shook slightly, not from fear, but from a rage she was struggling to contain. She didn't dial 911. She didn't call a lawyer. She pressed the speed dial for Dad. She put it on speaker. The phone rang once, twice. Then, a deep, baritone voice filled the silent first-class cabin. Maya, I'm in the middle of the acquisition vote. Is everything okay? Maya took a shaky breath. Dad, I'm being arrested on the plane. There was a silence on the other end that was more terrifying than any shout. Arrested? By whom? Port Authority, Officer Derek Brannigan. Badge number 4922, Maya recited, looking Brannigan dead in the eyes. A woman named Patricia Holloway decided she wanted my seat. She accused me of stealing the ticket, and then she told the police I had drugs. The officer didn't check my ticket. He just threw me against the wall. I'm in handcuffs, Dad. Brannigan rolled his eyes. Tell your daddy to save up for bail, honey. Handcuffs, the voice on the phone repeated. The tone had shifted. It was no longer a father's voice. It was the voice of Marcus Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Logistics and Cloud Data, the man who owned the server farms that ran half the airport's security systems, and more importantly, the man who had just signed an exclusive 10-year fuel logistics contract with Sovereign Airways. Put the officer on the phone, Maya. Brannigan laughed. I'm not talking to your dad. Put him on the phone, the voice roared so loud the speaker distorted. Brannigan blinked, startled. He grabbed the phone from Maya's hand. Listen here, sir. Your daughter is causing a scene. She's going down for... Shut your mouth and listen to me very carefully, Marcus Sterling interrupted, his voice ice cold. My name is Marcus Sterling. Do you know who I am? Brannigan paused. The name sounded familiar. I don't care who. I own the fuel contract for the plane you are standing on. I own the logistics company that processes the payroll for the Port Authority. And I am currently sitting in a boardroom with the CEO of Sovereign Airways, David Thorne. Brannigan's face went pale. I am going to hang up now, Marcus continued. And in exactly 30 seconds, the pilot of that plane is going to receive a call from the tower. If my daughter is not released, apologized to, and seated back in 1A within 1 minute, I am pulling every Sterling fuel truck from JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark immediately. I will ground the entire eastern seaboard. Do you understand me? Brannigan swallowed hard. He looked at the phone, then at Maya. I think you're bluffing, Brannigan stammered. Try me, Marcus said. And Brannigan, don't lose that badge. You're going to need to sell it for rent money. The line went dead. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. Patricia Holloway let out a nervous giggle. Well, that was dramatic. Probably a fake app. Just take her away, officer. Then, the intercom chimed. Flight attendants, prepare for wait. The pilot's voice came over the PA, sounding confused and urgent. Correction. Flight attendants, disarm doors immediately. Police on board. Please report to the cockpit interphone immediately. Repeat, police to the interphone immediately. Priority call from the CEO. Officer Miller looked at Brannigan. Oh my God, he wasn't lying. Brannigan looked at the handcuffs on Maya's wrist. They suddenly looked less like restraints and more like a death sentence for his career. Maya just leaned back against the wall, held up her cuffed wrist, and smiled. Tick-tock, officer. The silence that fell over Sovereign Airways Flight 902 was heavier than the aircraft itself. The hum of the engines, which had been a comforting white noise just moments ago, spooled down into a whine, and then nothing. The air conditioning vents stopped hissing. The cabin lights flickered once and switched to the dimmer emergency backup setting. It wasn't just quiet. It was dead. Officer Derek Brannigan stood in the aisle, the plastic interphone receiver pressed to his ear, sweat beading on his forehead. The hand holding the receiver was trembling. On the other end of the line wasn't just the pilot. It was the chief of Port Authority Police, patched through directly from the tower. Brannigan. The voice on the other end crackled, loud enough that Officer Miller could hear it from 3 feet away. This is Chief O'Malley. Do not speak. Do not explain. Do not give me your version of events. You are to stand down immediately. If that girl is still in cuffs, you better hope you have a magical key that turns steel into gold, because you have just stepped into a pile of shit so deep you're going to drown in it. Brannigan swallowed, his throat dry as sandpaper. Chief, I said do not speak, O'Malley roared. We have received a call from the governor's office. We have received a call from the CEO of Sovereign Airways. And I am currently watching a live feed of every Sterling Logistics fuel truck at JFK turning off their engines and blocking the taxiways. You have single-handedly shut down John F. Kennedy International Airport, you moron. Uncuff her. Now. Brannigan lowered the phone slowly, looking as if he'd seen a ghost. He looked at Maya. She was still leaning against the bulkhead, the single cuff dangling from her left wrist like a silver bracelet, her expression unreadable. She wasn't gloating. She looked bored. "What's happening?" Patricia Holloway demanded, her voice shrill in the sudden silence. "Why did the air go off? Why are we stopping?" She stood up, pointing a manicured finger at Maya. "Did she do this? Is she a hacker? I told you she was a danger. She's crashing the plane from her phone." "Sit down, Mrs. Holloway," Officer Miller said, his voice surprisingly firm. He had realized about 2 minutes ago that his partner had made a fatal error, and he was currently calculating how to distance himself from the blast radius. "Don't you tell me to sit down," Patricia shrieked. "I want answers. Why is the pilot listening to a criminal's father? This is terrorism." "Look outside," Maya said softly. It was the first thing she had said since the phone call ended. The businessman in row 2, who had been studiously ignoring the conflict, leaned toward the window. He gasped. "Holy, look at the tarmac." Patricia rushed to the window, pushing past the flight attendant. Outside, on the sprawling concrete expanse of JFK, a surreal scene was unfolding. Usually, the tarmac is a ballet of chaos, baggage carts zipping, fuel trucks pumping, marshals waving batons. But now it was frozen. 3 massive silver tanker trucks, emblazoned with the blue logo Sterling Logistics, had pulled up directly in front of the nose of the Boeing 777. They parked in a wedge formation, physically blocking the plane from moving forward. Beyond them, in the distance, other trucks had stopped in the middle of taxiways, blocking an incoming Delta flight and a departing British Airways jet. The airport had been paralyzed. The arteries of commerce had been severed by one man on a conference call. He wasn't bluffing, the businessman whispered, looking at Maya with a newfound mix of fear and reverence. "Your dad, he really stopped the airport." Patricia turned back to Maya, her face pale but her eyes wild with denial. "This is ridiculous. It's a coincidence, a union strike. It has nothing to do with you." Maya looked at Brannigan. "Officer, I believe you have orders." Brannigan looked at the key in his hand. His ego was screaming at him to double down, to drag her off anyway, to prove that the badge was the ultimate authority. But the silence of the engines was a powerful argument. He stepped forward, his boots feeling heavy. "Give me your wrist," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. "Say, please," Maya said. Brannigan's head snapped up, his nostrils flared. "Don't push your luck, kid." "My luck is fine," Maya replied, voice cool as ice. "Your luck, however, ran out the moment you touched me. I was compliant. I was peaceful. You escalated this. Now, if you want to unlock this cuff, you will ask me politely. Otherwise, we can wait for the people in the black SUVs, who I assume are currently speeding across the tarmac." Brannigan looked out the window. Sure enough, a convoy of 3 black Chevy Suburbans with flashing lights was tearing across the restricted zone, weaving between the stationary fuel trucks. They weren't airport security. They were executive operations. Brannigan knew that if those men found Maya in cuffs, he wouldn't just be fired, he'd be prosecuted. "Please," Brannigan choked out, the word tasting like bile. "Please let me remove the cuffs." Maya extended her wrist. With shaking hands, Brannigan inserted the key and turned it. The metal clicked open. Maya rubbed her wrist, where a red welt was already forming. "Thank you," she said. She didn't move to sit down. She stood in the aisle, smoothing her hoodie. "Well?" Patricia huffed, crossing her arms. "Now that the theatrics are over, get her off the plane so we can leave. I have a dinner reservation in Zurich." Sarah, the head flight attendant, looked at Patricia with a gaze that could curdle milk. "Mrs. Holloway, nobody is going anywhere. The plane has been grounded by the control tower. And frankly, after the way you've behaved, I'm writing a report that will likely have you banned from Sovereign Airways for life." "Banned?" Patricia laughed, a manic, high-pitched sound. "You can't ban me. I'm a Diamond member. I know the Vice President of Customer Relations. And I know the CEO of the company that supplies the fuel for this entire fleet, Maya interjected calmly. I think my contact trumps yours, Patricia. Patricia lunged forward, her composure finally snapping completely. You little brat. You think money makes you better than me? I worked for my status. I belong here. You are just a diversity quota with a rich daddy. The slur hung in the air, toxic and undeniable. Officer Miller stepped between them instantly. Ma'am, step back. That is enough. No, it's not enough, Patricia screamed, spittle flying. I want her arrested. I want her searched. She has drugs. She has a bomb. Why aren't you listening to me? Before Miller could respond, the main cabin door, which had been closed, hissed. The pressurized seal was broken. The heavy door swung open. The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. Standing in the doorway were 4 men. The first was the captain of the flight, looking pale and shaken. The second was the airport director of operations, a man named Henderson, who was known for eating negligent employees for breakfast. The third was a man in a bespoke Italian suit, holding a satellite phone. This was David Thorne, the CEO of Sovereign Airways, who had been on the plane at the gate next door preparing for a press event and had sprinted over the moment Marcus Sterling threatened to bankrupt his fuel supply. And the fourth man was the scariest of them all. He was a lawyer, specifically Marcus Sterling's personal counsel, who happened to be in New York for the merger. Who is in charge here? David Thorne, the CEO, asked. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a man who signed the paychecks of everyone in uniform. Brannigan stepped forward, trying to salvage his posture. Officer Brannigan, Port Authority. We had a disturbance. Be quiet. Thorne cut him off without even looking at him. He scanned the cabin and locked eyes with Maya. His face softened instantly into a mask of apologetic charm. Ms. Sterling, Thorne said, stepping over the threshold and walking straight past Patricia Halloway as if she were a piece of luggage. I am David Thorne, CEO of Sovereign. On behalf of the airline, I offer my deepest, most sincere apologies. I just got off the phone with your father. I assure you this misunderstanding is being rectified as we speak. Maya looked at him, unimpressed. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Mr. Thorne. It was a targeted removal based on a false accusation from a passenger, facilitated by an officer who refused to verify my ticket and assaulted me. Thorne flinched at the word, assaulted. He turned slowly to look at Brannigan. Assaulted? He slammed me against a wall and cuffed me without cause, Maya stated flatly. There are cameras and witnesses. Thorne turned to the airport director, Henderson. Director, is this the standard of professionalism we expect from the Port Authority on my aircraft? Henderson, a man who hated having his airport shut down, glared at Brannigan. Officer Brannigan, give me your badge. Sir? Brannigan stammered. I was following protocol, the passenger stated. Give me your badge, Henderson enunciated, holding out his hand. You are relieved of duty, pending an internal affairs investigation. You do not handcuff a 19-year-old girl in first class based on hearsay without checking a ticket. You have cost this airport millions of dollars in the last 10 minutes. You are done. Brannigan stood frozen. The humiliation was total. Slowly, with trembling fingers, he unclipped the shield from his chest and placed it in Henderson's hand. He looked at Maya, his eyes filled with hate, but he said nothing. And you, Thorne said, finally turning to Patricia Holloway. Patricia puffed out her chest. She clearly didn't understand that the tide had not just turned. It had become a tsunami. Finally, David, I've been trying to get your staff to listen. This girl has been terrorizing me. I expect a full refund and an upgrade on my next flight for this trauma. Thorne looked at her with an expression of genuine confusion mixed with disgust. He motioned to his assistant, who handed him a tablet. Mrs. Halloway, Thorne said, scrolling through the screen. I see here you are indeed a Diamond Medallion member. You've flown with us for 6 years. Exactly, Patricia smirked, casting a triumphant look at Maya. Loyalty matters. It does, Thorne agreed. He tapped the screen 3 times, which is why it is so unfortunate that I have just personally revoked your status, canceled your return ticket, and placed you on the Sovereign Airways permanent no-fly list. The silence that followed David Thorne's declaration was different from the earlier silence. This wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence of shock. The oxygen seemed to leave Patricia Halloway's lungs. "Excuse me?" Patricia whispered, her voice trembling. "You can't do that. I am the CEO, Mrs. Halloway. I can do whatever I want," Thorne said, his voice dripping with the same elitism she had tried to weaponize, only his was backed by actual power. "You verbally abused a passenger. You made false accusations to law enforcement. You delayed a transatlantic flight. And, according to the witness statements my team just pulled from the passengers in row 2, Thorne glanced at the businessman, who nodded vigorously. "You used racial slurs." "I did not," Patricia lied, her face turning blotchy. "I said she didn't belong here." "That is not a slur. It's a fact. Look at her." "I am looking at her," Thorne said coldly. "I see the daughter of one of our most vital business partners. A young woman studying international law at Zurich University. A passenger who paid full fare. When I look at you, Mrs. Halloway, do you know what I see?" Patricia stood frozen, her mouth slightly open. "I see a liability," Thorne said. He turned to the Sterling family lawyer, Mr. Sterling's counsel, who had remained silent until now. "Mr. Vance, would you like to add anything?" Mr. Vance, a man who wore suits that cost more than Brannigan's annual salary, stepped forward. He held a sleek leather briefcase. He didn't look at Patricia. He looked at the officers. "Officers," Vance said, his voice smooth and predatory. "My client, Ms. Sterling, will be pressing charges against Mrs. Halloway for defamation of character, harassment, and filing a false police report. We will also be filing a civil suit for emotional distress. We will be seeking damages in the range of, let's say, $5 million. Patricia gasped, clutching her chest. $5 million? You're insane! I have lawyers! My husband is at Goldman! Vance smiled, a shark smelling blood. "Ah, yes, Richard Holloway. We looked him up while we were driving across the tarmac. Interesting thing about Richard. Did you know he's currently under investigation by the SEC for insider trading? It hasn't hit the news yet, but it will. I imagine a high-profile lawsuit involving his wife screaming at a black teenager on a plane isn't going to help his case. Or your assets." Patricia's knees buckled. She grabbed the armrest of seat 1K to steady herself. The color had drained from her face completely. Her armor, her status, her husband's money, her entitlement had been stripped away layer by layer in front of an audience. "I didn't mean," Patricia stammered, tears welling up in her eyes, not tears of remorse, but tears of self-pity. "I was just stressed. The merger, the flight. I just wanted my seat." "It was never your seat," Maya said. She stepped forward, closing the distance between them. She wasn't shouting. She was calm, regal, and terrifying. "You assumed it was your seat because you couldn't conceive of a world where someone like me sits in front of someone like you. You thought you could bully me. You thought you could call the cops and I would just disappear. But you forgot one thing, Patricia." Maya leaned in close, her voice a whisper that carried to the back of the cabin. "You forgot that when you punch down, sometimes you hit bedrock, and bedrock breaks your hand." Maya turned to Officer Miller. "Officer, I believe this woman is trespassing on this aircraft. She has no ticket. She has been banned. Please remove her." Officer Miller, eager to redeem himself, and sensing the winning side, nodded sharply. "Yes, ma'am." He turned to Patricia. "Mrs. Halloway, let's go. Grab your bag." "No," Patricia wailed, clinging to the seat. "I'm not leaving. I paid for this. You can't treat me like this." "We can do this the easy way." Miller repeated the words Brannigan had used on Maya earlier, the irony hanging thick in the air. "Or the hard way. But you are getting off this plane." Patricia looked around the cabin for support. She looked at the businessman, he looked away, she looked at the elderly couple. The woman shook her head in disgust. She looked at Sarah, the flight attendant. Sarah smiled, A tight, professional, devastating smile. "Goodbye, Mrs. Halloway. Do try to have a pleasant day." Miller and a backup officer grabbed Patricia by the arms. Unlike Maya, Patricia did not go quietly. She kicked. She screamed. She cursed the airline, the police, and woke culture. As they dragged her down the aisle, her Chanel bag caught on a seat armrest and spilled its contents. Lipstick, a compact mirror, pills, and several small airline liquor bottles she must have swiped from the lounge rolled down the aisle. Theft of airline property, Thorne noted dryly to the director of operations. Add it to the list. As Patricia's screaming faded up the jet bridge, the cabin fell silent again. The tension slowly began to dissipate, replaced by a collective exhale. Thorne turned to Maya. "Miss Sterling, again, I am mortified. We will need to deplane the other passengers to perform a security sweep and reset the crew, as per protocol after a breach. But we will have you back in the air in 2 hours. I've arranged for a private suite in the terminal for you to wait, and I'll have your father's favorite scotch waiting." Maya rubbed her wrist. "I don't drink scotch, Mr. Thorne. I'm 19, but I'll take an iced tea. And I want one more thing." "Name it," Thorne said. "Sarah." Maya pointed to the flight attendant. "She tried to stop them. She was the only one who actually checked my ticket. I want her commended. And I want her to receive whatever bonus Mrs. Holloway would have cost the airline." Sarah's eyes widened. She covered her mouth with her hand. Thorne smiled, a genuine one this time. "Done. Sarah, consider yourself promoted to senior purser effective immediately." Maya nodded. She picked up her backpack, the one Brannigan had threatened to search. She looked at the disgraced officer, who was now standing by the cockpit door, stripped of his badge, waiting for his own escort off the plane. "You know what was in the bag?" Maya asked him. Brannigan looked up, defeated. Maya unzipped the front pocket and pulled out a bag of Haribo Gold Bears. She tossed them to him. They hit his chest and fell to the floor. "Just gummy bears, officer. Just gummy bears." Maya walked past him and off the plane, flanked by the CEO and her lawyer, leaving the former officer standing alone in the wreckage of his career. But the story wasn't over, because while the plane situation was resolved, the war Patricia Holloway had started was just beginning. The video the businessman in row 2 had secretly recorded, the one showing Brannigan shoving Maya and Patricia screaming slurs, had just finished uploading to Twitter. And Marcus Sterling hadn't just stopped the fuel trucks, he had called the press. The Sovereign Airways Invictus Lounge at JFK is a place few people ever see. Hidden behind frosted glass doors near Gate 4, it is reserved for heads of state, A-list celebrities, and people like the Sterlings. It doesn't look like an airport. It looks like the library of a British manor, complete with a fireplace, velvet armchairs, and a silence so profound it feels expensive. Maya sat in a wingback chair, an iced tea on the mahogany coaster beside her. Her hoodie was still on, a stark contrast to the surroundings, but her posture had changed. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. Opposite her sat Mr. Vance, the lawyer, tapping furiously on his tablet. David Thorne, the CEO, was pacing by the window, on the phone with his PR team, his voice a hushed, urgent murmur. "It's trending," Vance said, breaking the silence. He didn't look up. Top spot on Twitter, number 3 on TikTok. The video has 4 million views. It's been 45 minutes. Maya pulled out her phone. She hadn't looked at social media yet. She opened Twitter and saw her name. Or rather, she saw the hashtag #firstclasswhileblack. She clicked the top video. It was the angle from the businessman in row 2. The audio was crystal clear. "You have exactly 3 seconds to get out of that seat before I drag you out myself. If you touch me, you won't just lose your badge." Then the sickening thud of her body hitting the wall, the click of the cuffs, Patricia Holloway's gleeful, hateful face in the background snapping pictures. Maya scrolled down to the comments. At Truthseeker 99. Did that cop just assault a teenager for sitting in her seat? Find his badge number. Now. At Finance Bro. Wait, is that Patricia Holloway? The wife of Richard Holloway from Horizon Capital? I recognize that Chanel suit. She's a nightmare at charity galas, too. At Justice now. The way she smiled when the cuffs went on, that's pure evil. The girl was calm the whole time. Who is the girl? They know who you are, Vance said, turning his screen to show her a CNN breaking news alert. Daughter of tech mogul Marcus Sterling, racially profiled and arrested on Flight 902. Does Dad know it's this big? Maya asked quietly. Maya, Vance said, his voice softening. Your father didn't just call the press. He is the press right now. He landed at the private helipad 5 minutes ago. The heavy oak doors of the lounge swung open. Marcus Sterling did not walk into a room. He occupied it, standing 6'4", wearing a charcoal suit that looked like armor. He had a presence that sucked the oxygen out of the space. He ignored the CEO. He ignored the lawyer. He walked straight to Maya. Maya stood up. Hi, Dad. Marcus didn't speak. He wrapped her in a hug that was fierce and trembling. For a man who could shut down an airport with a phone call, he looked terrified. He pulled back, holding her by the shoulders, scanning her face. He looked at her wrist, where the red mark from the handcuff was turning into a bruise. His jaw tightened. A muscle feathered in his cheek. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Does it hurt? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. It's fine, Maya said. Just a bruise. Marcus turned to David Thorne. The CEO of Sovereign Airways stopped pacing. He looked like a schoolboy called to the principal's office. Marcus, Thorne started, hands raised. I can't express. You let a Port Authority thug put hands on my daughter, Marcus said. It wasn't a scream. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the weight of an executioner. On your plane, under your contract. We fired the officer. We banned the woman, Thorne said quickly. We are preparing a public statement apologizing to Maya. We are offering a donation to... I don't want your donation, Marcus cut him off. And I don't want your apology. I want blood, David, metaphorically speaking. I want that woman's life dismantled, and I want the Port Authority to bleed. We are pressing charges, Vance interjected smoothly. Assault, battery, unlawful imprisonment, defamation. But there is a complication. What complication? Marcus asked, eyes narrowing. Patricia Holloway is currently in the airport precinct, Vance explained. She's demanding to speak to the press. She's spinning a narrative that Maya attacked her first. She's claiming the video is edited. She's digging in. Maya let out a short, dry laugh. She really doesn't know when to stop, does she? Narcissists never do, Marcus said. They believe their own lies until the roof caves in. She's also calling her husband, Vance added, Richard Holloway. Horizon Capital. He's got connections. He's trying to get the governor on the line to squash the arrest. Marcus walked over to the fireplace. He stared at the flames for a moment, then pulled out his phone. He didn't dial a number. He opened an encrypted messaging app. Richard Holloway, Marcus murmured. He's shorting tech stocks, I remember him. He tried to undercut my acquisition of cloud data last year. Marcus typed a message. He looked at Maya. You said you wanted to handle this with grace, Marcus said. I tried, Maya replied. Grace didn't work. The handcuffs still went on. Exactly, Marcus said. Grace is for people who play by the rules. Patricia Holloway declared war, and in war we don't use grace, we use airstrikes. He hit send on his phone. What did you just do? Maya asked. I just sent the unedited security footage from the gate area, showing you boarding peacefully, to my contacts at the New York Times, Marcus said. But more importantly, I just authorized the release of a file my security team has been sitting on regarding Horizon Capital's trading practices. He turned to Vance. Vance, get the car. We're not going back to the plane. We're going to the precinct. If Mrs. Holloway wants to talk to the press, let's give her an audience. But first, I want you to call the SEC. The SEC, Vance raised an eyebrow. Richard Holloway has been trading on non-public information regarding the Sovereign Airways fuel merger, Marcus said coldly. He knew about the deal because his wife overheard a call I made 3 weeks ago in the Swiss lounge. That's why she felt so entitled to that seat. She thinks she owns the airline because her husband is betting on its stock. David Thorne looked horrified. Insider trading? On my merger? Yes, Marcus said. And the tip came from me, just now. Marcus turned back to Maya and offered his arm. Ready to go make a statement, sweetheart? Maya took a deep breath. She pulled her hood down, revealing her face. She squared her shoulders. Yeah, she said. Let's go. Inside the VIP lounge, the lawyer, Vance, turned his tablet toward Maya. The hashtag #FirstClassWhileBlack was the #1 trend globally. The video of Brannigan slamming her against the wall had 4 million views. Then, Marcus Sterling walked in. He didn't want an apology from the airline CEO. He wanted war. Grace didn't work, Marcus told Maya, his voice low and dangerous. Now we use airstrikes. He revealed his masterstroke. He had just tipped off the SEC. Richard Holloway had been insider trading on the Sovereign Airways merger, information he possessed only because Patricia had eavesdropped on Marcus weeks ago in a Swiss lounge. Her entitlement was about to cost them everything. 40 miles away in Manhattan, Richard Holloway's life disintegrated. The managing partner of Horizon Capital marched into Richard's office, dropping a manila envelope on the desk. The SEC just froze your accounts. You're fired effective immediately. Richard begged, blaming his wife's behavior for the heat, but security was already escorting him out. As he stood on the curb, disgraced, his phone rang. It was Patricia, hysterical from the precinct booking room. Richard, get me a lawyer, fix this. Richard's voice was deadly cold. I'm not getting you a lawyer, Patricia. I'm getting a divorce attorney. The locks will be changed by tonight. Don't come home. He hung up, leaving her to face the consequences alone. Back at the precinct, Patricia sat in a cold cell, stripped of her jewelry, shoes, and dignity. She pounded on the door, demanding her husband, but the guard just pointed to the TV mounted in the corner. He's not coming, but you're on the news. On the screen, Maya stood outside the precinct, flanked by her father and the airline CEO. The camera flashes popped like strobes. Maya looked immaculate and strong. Dignity isn't something you buy with a ticket, Maya declared to the press, looking directly into the lens. And authority isn't something you weaponize just because you're uncomfortable. She smiled, a sharp, victorious look. My father and I are suing the Holloway estate for damages. We are using every penny of that money to fund the 1A scholarship, full tuition for underprivileged students of color to study international law. Mrs. Holloway is going to help a lot of people like me take their seats at the front of the plane. Forever. In her cell, watching the news ticker announce her husband's firing and her own impending lawsuit, Patricia screamed. It was a primal sound of absolute defeat. But nobody came to help. The sound was swallowed by the thick concrete walls, just as her life was swallowed by the karma she had earned in 3 seconds of hate. 6 months later, the Manhattan criminal court was overflowing. The air in courtroom 304 was frigid as the final act of the People versus Patricia Holloway played out. Patricia sat at the defense table, unrecognizable. The Botox had faded, her Chanel suit was replaced by a cheap beige cardigan, and her assets had been fully seized by the SEC. She was alone, no husband, no country club friends, no status. Judge Reynolds peered over his glasses, his voice cutting through the silence. Mrs. Holloway, you didn't just lose your temper, you weaponized the police against a young woman because you felt entitled to her space. You tried to use the state to inflict violence on a teenager. That is not a mistake. That is malice. Patricia sobbed quietly, begging for probation. I just want to go home. You don't have a home to go to, the judge replied coldly. I sentence you to 18 months in a state correctional facility. He paused, looking down at her to deliver the final blow. You are also ordered to complete 500 hours of community service, assigned specifically to the sanitation detail at JFK Airport. You wanted to control who sits in first class? Now you can clean up after them. The gavel dropped with a thunderous bang. Patricia was led away in real handcuffs. casting one last ashamed look at Maya before vanishing into the system. Across the city, Derek Brannigan was serving a different kind of sentence. He had lost his badge, his pension, and his dignity. Now he sat on a folding chair in a dingy Queens pawn shop, wearing a cheap polyester Secure Guard uniform, making minimum wage. A group of teenagers walked in, laughing. When Brannigan tried to use his old command voice to shush them, one kid stopped and pulled out his phone. "Yo, wait a minute! It's him! The 3 seconds cop!" The teens surrounded him, filming and laughing. "Where's your badge now, bro? You gonna drag me out?" Brannigan froze. He realized he was no longer an authority figure. He was a walking meme, a cautionary tale with zero power. He sank back into his folding chair, utterly defeated, while the kids posted his humiliation to the world. 2 weeks later, Maya Sterling returned to JFK. She walked past a newsstand displaying Time magazine, featuring a silhouette of a girl in a hoodie with the headline, "The Seat at the Table." She boarded the flight to Zurich. Sarah, the newly promoted senior purser, welcomed her with a warm smile and a bouquet of lilies from Marcus Sterling. As Maya settled into seat 1A, a young black girl walking to economy stopped and stared at Maya with wide, wondrous eyes. "Are you the Queen?" the little girl whispered. Maya smiled, looking out at the tarmac where the Sterling fuel trucks moved freely. "No," she winked. "But this seat is for everyone who knows their worth. Maybe one day you'll sit here too." As the plane roared to life, Maya closed her eyes. The turbulence was over. Justice had been served. And this time, as the wheels left the ground, nobody said a word. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why you never judge a book by its cover, and you certainly never judge a passenger by their hoodie. Patricia Halloway learned the hard way that when you try to steal someone's dignity, you might just end up losing your own freedom. It's a harsh lesson, but a necessary one. Respect isn't about status, it's about character. If this story got your heart racing and you believe in justice being served hot, do me a massive favor. Smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder that karma is always watching. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. We post new dramas, twists, and real-life karma stories every single week. Thanks for watching, stay safe, stand your ground, and I'll see you in the next video.